Good evening all, and welcome back to From the Terrace by the fans.
For the
fans.
Felt good. I'm joined by La Familia tonight, Connor Hack.
How you doing, mate?
J Mac.
Hello, boys.
And D Welton.
Evening all.
How's everyone?
Good, mate.
Good. Can't complain.
Good. Feeling good.
Good to have Dan back.
Yeah,
good to be
have
back.
The big man back himself. And tonight we're going to be discussing Pochettino's return to PSG. We touched on it in the last podcast, and we want to revisit it and delve a little deeper into it and our thoughts on it and where we think he could potentially take them moving forward. And then moving on from there, we'd like to look into club legends, going back to the former clubs, not even club legends, former players, and whether it works in the long run or whether the honeymoon period eventually goes away. So starting off, we'll go with Pochettino, coming back to PSG. What does everyone think about that? I'll start with Connor first of all. Actually, I'll start with Dan Welton because he wasn't there for the last one.
Welcome.
What's your thoughts on it?
Oh, thank you very much, boys. I'll be honest with you, it's probably the smartest appointment they could have made. Obviously, Tuchel's had a rough time of it since the Champions League final. Don't think it's any shock that he's gone after their recent results and start to the season, being third. But it's smart. You know, for Pochettino, it's smart. He's got resources there. He's got a fantastic front line, at least. He can just build around that, get some players in that, you know, that can help his cause and help PSG get to where they really want to be. They'll probably still win the league every other year or every year. But if he can get them close to the Champions League final and get them to win it, then, you know, happy days. But right now, it's very hard to complain against it or argue against it because it's such a smart choice.
Yeah, he did seem like he is the best option out there at the moment, in my opinion. Young, talented manager. Does he have to win the Champions League at PSG to be a success? Because winning the league sort of goes hand in hand in the French league, really, with PSG, because they've got all the money, they've got the resources. Is the Champions League a must for him to be a success in that club? Jamie, Matt?
I mean, that's what they want. Obviously, that's pretty much their experiment now. As you said, the quality of the league isn't as good as other countries. So you'd expect them to win titles domestically season upon season. So their experiment is just chopping and changing managers until they do reach the pinnacle of the Champions League. So yeah, I agree with Dan. This is, you know, is the best option for them. But I think it's a really good move for him, despite the fact that obviously, you know, the fact that the quality is a bit lower. You know, it was quite a bit of, you know, at Tottenham, it was like, can he create that winning mentality? Can he get them over the line, win trophies and stuff like that? And that ultimately is why he lost the job, because he wasn't able to. So I think for him personally, he's got, you know, he's going back obviously somewhere where he's comfortable. And I think whether he wins the Champions League or not, it's going to help him create a bit of a winning mentality for himself because he's likely to win trophies. So the next job he gets, you know, he's going to go in probably as a winner, even if it does ultimately, you know, get called a failure if he doesn't quite get the Champions League.
Well, just quickly, sorry, boys, with Jay saying Champions League has to be a must. Because if you look at Tuchel, he's actually got the best win percentage of any manager in Ligue 1. And he was on it at PSG for 2 seasons. They won the domestic treble last year. And I think a lot of people would be going away thinking, what has Tuchel done? You know, nothing really matters in the French league, with all due respect to them.
Yeah,
Champions League is where it's at. It has to be.
Yeah. No, my point was more for Pochettino.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, like the counter argument is, well, why has he gone there? Because it's, you know, the quality shit. But I link it, and I said this to you boys before when he was sort of linked to the job. I think it's very similar to Brendan Rodgers going up to Celtic. It didn't quite work for him in England at one of the bigger clubs. He wasn't quite able to get Liverpool over the line. But he went to Celtic where you're expected to win, and maybe not win the Champions League, but try and, obviously their challenge is to try and, you know, progress in Europe and get to the knockout phase, for example. And I think we'd all agree, since he's left Celtic and come to Leicester, it's done in the world of good. So I link it, and I think Pochettino, it probably isn't thinking of that, but it's a similar sort of career path, in my opinion. So I think it's a really good move for him personally.
Take the money aside, is it a step up for him? Because managing Spurs in the Premier League was a good test of his managerial talent. Obviously, yeah, he's got more chance of winning the Champions League now, but is it a step up in quality? Realistically, I know he's working with better players, but he had some great players at Spurs. What do you think, Connor? Is it a step up for Pochettino?
Tough, really, isn't it? I mean, I wouldn't, if I was him, I probably wouldn't look at it as a massive step up in terms of the quality of player he's going to be working with, for one. I mean, I know they've got Neymar, they've got Mbappe, they've got some good players, but you look at the rest of their side over the pitch and you think he's worked with players that are a similar ability to those that he's going to have at PSG now.
Harry Kane, son at Spurs,
yeah, I mean,
world class.
I agree with what Jay said. For me, I think personally for Pochettino, it's about going into a club where winning is everything. At Spurs, he wasn't expected to win anything. He was expected to build a squad that could. At PSG, he's going in there and he's expected to win the league, the cup. He's expected to go as far as he can and get that Champions League trophy for him. It will do him the world of good as a manager. I don't see him being there very long. And not because he won't be successful. I just don't think PSG is the kind of club where a manager is going to stay at for years and years and years. I do think they're the kind of club, because of the way the French league is, that managers do go to win trophies and get experience of being a winner. Thomas Tuchel had managed some decent sides, but he's never managed a top side like PSG to win those sort of trophies and challenge and become a winner. And I know it's not worked out for him this season, but like Dan said, his win percentage is higher than anyone else. It's a great move for Poch, in my opinion. I think he'll do well there. I do think he's got the capability of potentially maybe getting them over the line in the Champions League, but I do think that it's not just down to him. It's obviously down to his recruitment. He needs to bring in players. PSG have got good players all over the park, but they're lacking in defence for me. Losing Thiago Silva was big for PSG. He's got to look to sort of not replace him, because you can't really replace a player like Thiago Silva, but it's a centre-back, in my opinion. I think they need to go for potentially maybe a goalkeeper as well, because obviously they've got an ageing goalkeeper as well.
That was my next question, was what do they need to get over the line? Obviously, getting Pochettino in is a brilliant manager. I know Champions League is a hard trophy to win, but with the money spent, what do they need to then do to take that next step and potentially win that trophy? I think it's such a hard trophy to win, regardless, because the Champions League is littered with teams that have money and have talented squads.
Well, it's a similar predicament, really, to Man City. All the money in the world, but yet when it comes to Champions League, they just can't quite get over the line. And it's a bit like Chelsea with that as well, a lot of the time, before you boys won it in 2012. Sometimes it's just waiting your time. And a lot of the time in Champions League, it's the team you don't expect to win it that will come up and win it. You know, last year was probably the best chance they'll ever have of winning it, being as good as they were, because the format was completely different. They were playing in neutral games. They weren't doing the home and away where they've struggled in recent years. And then they'll obviously a bit unlucky to come up against such a good Bayern Munich team, but they had such an easier run-in than everyone else with Leipzig and then Atalanta, probably the all due respect, weakest teams in the competition. So maybe it's just literally biding your time and just taking your opportunity when it comes, as vague as that is. You know, there's no formula to win it, unfortunately, for them.
I think they lack what's the team ethic, team togetherness. You know, they're not a unit. They're very reliant on those star players up top. They've gone down the sort of Galactico route, and they do rely on individual brilliance. Not to put us on the same level, but United are similar at the moment. We're getting through on individual moments, and I think PSG are very much like that. So someone like Poch actually might be exactly what they need, because what he did at Tottenham was create that togetherness within the squad. He built a style of play, and that's probably exactly what PSG need. Obviously, tweaking to the squad is going to be paramount.
Do you think a lack of competitiveness in the French league hinders PSG, or do you think it allows them to keep fresher for the knockout stages? I've always thought that's something that's held them back, is the lack of competition in the league kind of takes away that edge of, a ruthlessness and stuff. When you're turning over teams every week quite easily, it becomes just the norm. And when you do meet someone who matches you in talent and matches you in desire, you don't struggle to reach them levels if you haven't got that competitiveness in the league.
It's never been a problem for Bayern Munich, though, is it? Especially
No,
in recent years. I know Dortmund have sort of
different to
challenged,
French
but
league.
Dortmund haven't really challenged, have they? How many leagues is it Bayern have won in a row? Like 8, 9?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I genuinely I do think it's down to the type of people they've had in charge. I don't think they've, like Jay said, I don't think they've had anyone that has brought that togetherness. They've just tried to focus on your Neymars and your Mbappes and hope that players like that will get them through. You got to remember they had Cavani in that team, Di Maria, obviously still there, Thiago Silva at the back. So they had big players all over the park, and they've lost those players. They've lost those experienced players now, and it is all lying on the shoulders of your Neymars and Mbappes, who are still young men. So maybe they need experience. Maybe they just need fresh ideas in new positions. I mean, it's looking more and more likely that one of his first signings is going to be Dele Alli. I've been reading a lot about the fact that Poch has been mentioning him a lot, and Poch got the best out of him at Spurs and thinks he can bring the best out of him again. And maybe something new for Dele Alli might reinvigorate him, because at the top of his game, Dele Alli was class. And Pochettino might be able to get that out of him in France, where maybe, like you said, the quality's not as good. So it gives him a bit of a chance to sort of relax and just play his own game. Who knows? But
well, kind of leads on to what we want to talk about, I guess, in a way. Pochettino bringing back a former player of his into the team. Let's lead on to the manager side of things and clubs bringing back former players, legends sometimes just former players. We've seen in the past it work spectacularly. You look back throughout the years, you look back at Kenny Dalglish coming back to Liverpool, Graham Souness coming back to Liverpool, and then in the modern era, Pep Guardiola at Barcelona, Zinedine Zidane at Real Madrid, and obviously more recently, we're looking at Frank Lampard, Solskjaer, Arteta, and Pirlo, who are under the microscope at the moment. What's our thoughts on bringing back club legends? Is it a good thing at the moment? It's becoming more and more popular. Do you think it's taken away the experience that they need to manage at them top clubs? What's your thoughts, Dan?
I think short term, it's always a good idea, especially when you're a rough sticky patch, because it's almost like the fans are going to get behind them and they almost earn the right almost to be the manager at the club. I think long term, I'm not too sure how many of those worked out. Souness at Liverpool was a car crash. Dalglish, I think, was a player manager and then left. Didn't really do much after that other than winning the league with Blackburn. But I look at Lampard. Lampard came in
other than winning the league.
But I mean, after that, he was awful at Newcastle, awful at Celtic, etc. But I look at it as short term. It can be very good. I look at when Solskjaer first went into United, they went on to a fantastic run, and they should have. Well, unless they do something this season, they should have ended it there at the end of the season. Look at Lampard, had a very good season last year. Now it's a bit pressure's on. Pirlo, I kind of feel a bit bad for, because he was the under-21 manager for like 2 days before they decided to really ship him in. But I think overall I'm not opposed to it. But I think if they're not part of the plan, or they're not there for, to be a piece of the jigsaw, then it's not really good for anyone.
Okay. So Pep Guardiola obviously was amazing at Barcelona. He walked into a very, very talented squad. Messi as one, the best player of all time, potentially. Did Guardiola, doing so well, create a precedent for this whole bringing legends back and expectation that they will bring success to a club? Jamie?
Yes and no. Yeah. I mean, we were talking about this last night, and I did say that Pep doing that and having that squad and being so successful with it has sort of created a bit of a trend. It seems to be a much more popular thing now to bring a former player back. And we also see, you look at Gerrard at Rangers as well. It's former top players getting probably bigger jobs than what we're used to. And I don't know whether it's, we heard Jamie Carragher the other day on Sky said, he never wanted to go into management because he didn't want to start in the lower leagues. He didn't feel like he wanted to do that. And I don't know whether there's a level of arrogance in former players that have played at a certain level that they don't want to go and do the hard yards in the lower leagues and actually learn the trade before they come into the top jobs. And ultimately, it looks like with certain managers, they're coming unstuck a bit. So I do think Pep has influenced that massively. And I do think clubs should be very wary and not look at that as an example, because he took on the best squad we've ever seen. Yes, he implemented some great ideas, but he had the tools to work with. To ask someone like Arteta, for example, to come into a struggling club, limited funds, and galvanise that whole club and build it from the bottom pretty much. That's hard, man. That's really hard. It's, whilst I rate him and I think he will ultimately become a good manager, was that the step that he should have taken at that time? I'm not sure now. At the time, it seemed great, but, hindsight's a wonderful thing. But
yeah, I mean, Arteta was slightly different. Whereas he was learning under Pep for quite some time. So it kind of felt like he'd had that slight experience of being at a club and learning, from one of the best. Whereas Solskjaer had, a time at Cardiff or whatever, and then went back to Norway to manage. Lampard, a year in management with Derby. Both of them never really had that experience. And something was touched on recently in a debate, and I just want to ask Connor about this, is having a experienced member of staff alongside a young manager like that vital, do you think, because they don't have that experience?
I mean, yeah, it is vital, really. You got to think about it. They've never been in that sort of position before. They've played at the highest level, and they might have taken things from all of the managers that they've worked with, but until you're actually in that hot seat, you're not going to know the pressures that a manager has to go through and everything that job entails. So having someone with experience, an older head, maybe who's sort of been around, maybe assistant managed at other clubs with other top managers that can come in and give you guidance. Like Gerrard at Rangers took Gary McAllister with him, and Gary McAllister's a football man. He's been around lots of clubs, assistant managed, coached. So having someone like that is probably beneficial to him. But a lot of these managers, it's hard for them, because if they do decide to go down the leagues and manage clubs down there to get their experience, a bad run of games and you're sacked. And then a couple of those, and you're never going to get to manage at the top level. Like, we look at other managers in the league that have done good jobs for their teams and think, they deserve a shot maybe at a higher level, or they're being touted for higher jobs. Like Eddie Howe at Bournemouth, for years, people spoke about him of deserving a shot, managing at a higher level and managing at a higher club. But at the end of the day, he kept Bournemouth in the league as long as he did. But did they ever really kick on? Did they ever really get better? Did they ever really look like they were going to start challenging at a higher level? So for these managers, it's all about timing, and it's all about the chance that you give them. These players aren't going to turn down the opportunity to go and manage the clubs that they've played for. If the job came up for Gerrard, if something happened to Klopp 2 years ago and we approached Gerrard and said, we want you to take the job, I'm 99% sure he would have taken it, just for the sheer fact that you can't turn it down. Lampard probably didn't want to manage Chelsea this early in his career, but the fact that the opportunity came around, it's a hard thing to turn down. I think it's more that we as fans need to understand that these guys are inexperienced, no matter how big a legend they are at the club. They're going to need time. Chelsea aren't going to drop off a cliff now Lampard's a manager, and the same with United. They've dipped. It's clear for everyone to see they're not at the highest level of where they could be and where they want to be. But it's not like they're languishing down in the relegation zone, or you're looking at them thinking they're going to finish mid-table. Even Arsenal, we looked at them and thought the same, and they've picked up a few results, and now they're sort of back in the mix, looking at that top 6, 7 spots. You know what I mean? So I guess it's just about giving them time to implement their ideas. The only question is, how much time do you give these guys before you look at it and think things don't seem to be changing? You're spending money, but actual results and performances on the pitch seem to have stagnated and hit a standstill. I think that's when they need to be judged and looked at. Lampard's been there, a year and a bit now?
Yeah, I was going to say, should he be judged it goes with the same as the other managers. Should they be judged the same as managers who have done them years behind them because they've jumped into the jobs early? Should they still be judged the same, or should they be afforded more time than other managers genuinely are? Through the inexperience, because at the end of the day, they've been put in the job. They are in the job. So should they be judged the same? Should they be judged?
It's a question that's impossible to answer, really.
I actually think
depends on the owners.
I think they've earned the respect to at least get more time than the average Joe, to be honest with you, because of what they've done. The fans won't go against them straight away, and I think harmony is what you really want in a football club to make it run well, to make it run efficiently.
Yeah,
so I think they've earned the right. It's so
ruthless these days, man. It's so ruthless. It's a results business. They're all about winning, and that's how you make your money now, by winning and finishing high up the table. And eventually, even with, again, we use Lampard as an example at Chelsea. He's adored by Chelsea fans. But there are Chelsea fans out there that have and will start to turn on it and say he's not experienced enough to be the manager. We need someone bigger and better to come in if we want to start winning trophies again now. People, you get greedy as fans, owners, clubs. You get greedy. You get that winning mentality, and then it's hard to shake that. It's hard to shake that. If we lose Klopp and we don't win something for years, whoever comes in next, whether it be Gerrard, whether it be Alonso, who's being touted as coming in as the next manager, give them a year or two. If they're not winning things and we're not finishing in the same sort of positions we are under Klopp, Liverpool fans will start questioning them as well.
No, of course they would. But if you look at Chelsea, Sarri had 1 year. It wasn't a distortious year. And Lampard probably had a similar year, probably a tiny bit worse because he didn't win a trophy last year. But I'm pretty sure Chelsea fans will happily give him that bit more time than they would have given Sarri, because it's Lampard and he's got that respect from the fans already. So I think
they're at a different point.
It's the.
Go on.
Sorry, Joe.
I was going to say fans will have an influence, but ultimately it's with Lampard as the example. It's down to Roman Abramovich. Has Roman Abramovich come away from his mentality of 5-6 years ago, where he was saying we are entitled to be challenging for X, Y, and Z? If we are not challenging for X, Y, and Z, I will get rid of you and bring somebody else in who will challenge for X, Y, and Z. If he's changed his mentality and he's now willing to not accept it, I'm not saying Chelsea are at a lower level now, but if he's willing to say, I can accept us being at a lower level, then yes, Lampard deserves more time. But what I will say, and something that on my tip of my tongue for about 5 minutes, being a great player and being a legend at a club does not entitle you to being a great manager. You have to do that and you have to earn your way. So if you go in and don't do well, you deserve the sack just as much as any other manager, whether you've played there, managed there before, or whatever. So I don't think they should be judged the same. The fans will judge it, but at the end of the day, owners are there to win things and run a business. So if that manager isn't helping them to do that, they're well within their rights to chop them.
Yeah, I agree. I do feel like Lampard needs someone to lean on that's a little bit of an experienced head. I can imagine, having a Steve Clarke there, for example, would be great for him. Someone who's been around the block, who's learned under great managers and knows the game well. I think we were talking about before, Jody Morris, did well with the youth team and whatever, but what has he done in football? It's too young. Not in football in general, but I mean in management, in coaching.
I'm smiling at the example of Steve Clarke. I'm just imagining that conversation. Would you like to leave your job as the manager of your country to come and be my assistant?
No, I'm just thinking about back on.
I'm just imagining that.
On assistant managers, that have been at the club before. Someone like that in that time.
Yeah, no.
Or a Steve.
I agree with the point. Yeah. The example just made me chuckle.
Yeah. But yeah, it's an interesting subject. What do we think about the job Solskjaer's doing? Because he's been given a bit of time. His head's been on the block countless times, and people were saying he's got to go. And all of a sudden United have turned a corner and now look like a team that's together. Is that an example of giving someone enough time, they will get it right? Or, it's a difficult one. I mean, what did you think of Solskjaer at the moment? You think he's doing the job? You think he's the man to stay now? Or
me?
Yeah. Well, Dan, United fan. No, Jamie.
I think we need to see where he's at the end of the season. I personally think, I don't know whether it is an issue, but obviously we've lost a full semi-final since he took over. We need to get similar with like what we were saying about Poch at Spurs, Rodgers at Liverpool. He needs to get over the line with something now. Not get to a final. He needs to win something. Otherwise, that pressure is going to build. I think something that's helping Solskjaer and a lot of managers right now is that fans aren't there. There is no, the reaction from fans is social media at the moment, and that can be ignored. When you're in a stadium and you've got 70,000 people screaming at you because you're not doing a good job, that really resonates with board members, and that ultimately I think is where the fans have their influence in terms of getting people to sack. So I think the whole coronavirus thing is probably assisting in a way. Solskjaer, I don't know. I can't say yes or no. I don't know. We're in a good position right now in terms of points. We're level with Liverpool. If we don't lose to Burnley, we will go to Liverpool as leaders, which 2 months ago you'd have pissed yourself laughing if someone told you that was going to happen. I think it's a bit of a false position. As I said earlier, we're relying on individual moments. We're still not really, we're not clicking. We're not playing as a team. The style of play isn't clear. At the moment, we're very obviously reliant on Bruno. We can't seem to drop him. The one game we did drop him earlier in the season at West Ham, we were dog shit until he came on. So,
has he had enough time now? I remember a debate between Carragher and Keane saying about giving the man time. Has he now had enough time to summer windows?
By the end of this season, I believe the answer to that question is yes. I think, to sort of summarise his tenure so far, I actually like what he's done in the transfer market. I like the way he's gone there. But there still hasn't been enough of a shift in style of play. We are, as I said, we're still relying on Bruno, on Rashford to score a goal. We're still umming and ahhing about Pogba on whether he's going to do this or do that. So it's very sort of up in the air. If we win a trophy, I very much doubt that anything will happen and probably will drag on. So, I don't know.
Okay, and one last point, I guess, one for the future, I guess. Obviously, Gerrard's up at Rangers at the moment, doing very, very well. Looks like he's going to win the league up there. At what point would you boys be comfortable for him to, when Klopp eventually does move on, to come down and take the reins? Would you think he's a natural successor, or would you prefer someone to come in after Klopp and let Gerrard have a little bit more time managing somewhere else? Or is Rangers good enough for him to then step into the hot seat at a club like Liverpool?
Colin, do you want to go first? Because I think we might have a similar answer in the sense that once Klopp goes, I think we'll be happy with someone to help steady the ship from when Klopp does leave. Someone with a bit of experience, maybe someone with a similar, maybe even one of Klopp's assistants right now, if he can do a job. And then if Gerrard can get a job in the Premier League and show that he can do it at this level with this amount of competitiveness and this amount of pressure, then I'd be more than happy to. But as Steven Gerrard, a name by himself, winning the league with Rangers is good. Don't get me wrong. It'd be fantastic for Rangers. But on a CV where you want to be following a man that's just won the league first time in 30 years for Liverpool in a Champions League in consecutive years, it's chalk and cheese. You can't really just say, yeah, come on, Gerrard, you're a legend for us. You've done well in Scotland. It's a different kettle of fish.
I have changed my mind on this quite a lot since he's been down at Rangers. I've sort of fluctuated from, I'd love him to be the one that replaces Klopp, to no, I'd prefer it if, like Dan said, Klopp's assistant. I think Pep Linders is the one that's getting touted quite a lot, does a lot of the coaching on the coaching pitch. I watch a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, and he looks a really good coach. Like, some of the stuff he talks about is really interesting, and the way he implements it looks good. But at the same time, I know the Scottish League is a far cry away from the Premier League in terms of quality. But at Rangers, Gerrard's adopting the same formation that Liverpool play, the same pressing style. He relies very highly on his right and left back to provide crosses from wide. Remember, he managed our under-23s and our under-18s for a while as well. So that philosophy building up through the club, he's already got that in him, even though he hasn't worked under Klopp. He's taken a couple of coaches from the Liverpool youth system over there with him, who obviously know the ethos of that as well. And again, like I said, it's a far cry from the Premier League, the quality down there, but he's working with players of a lesser quality. So if he's got the same ideas and he's implementing them well with players that probably aren't of a Premier League quality, majority of the squad, then if he comes to us and we've still got majority of our squad, bar, I don't know, 3 or 4 who look like they're coming towards the end of their Liverpool career in the next 2 years or so, then I think he could come in and do a job, because it's continuity is what you want. What most clubs tend to have happen is a new manager comes in and has a completely different ethos, completely different style of play, and has to implement their style on that team, hence why they need time. But if your ethos is built from the same as what was there before, and your playing style is built from the same as what was there before, it's a seamless transition into that. It might just be the methods in which he brings it across that are slightly different.
Well, look, it's interesting. I've really enjoyed tonight. There's been some interesting points. Time will tell, as always, with football. 1 minute you're the next man sacked, the next minute you're the next best thing. So football's a crazy sport.
Top of the league.
Yeah, well, it could be. By next time we speak. Look, thanks for joining me. As always, it's been great to have a chat about football, and we're going to try and do some more podcasts, bring them out more regularly, keep active on the socials and try and bring in new ideas for this year. As we said last time, it's an important year for us, and we really appreciate the support. And obviously, if you can keep carrying on as you are, keep sharing, keep liking, keep subscribing, pass it on to family, friends, whoever. It'd be really appreciated. But yeah, for tonight, that's it. See you later, guys.
See you later, guys.
Sayonara.